Number 31. Doctors couldn't diagnose the CEO, until a single dad's triplets asked one question. The room fell silent as Marcus Blackwood collapsed during his company's annual meeting. The billionaire CEO who had everything, except answers to why his body was betraying him. What 31 specialists couldn't solve over 3 years, 3 8-year-old children would unravel in a single afternoon. If you're searching for proof that sometimes the most profound wisdom comes from the most unexpected places, this is a story you won't want to miss. Like this video if you believe in the power of childlike curiosity, and subscribe to join our community where we share extraordinary true stories that remind us what it means to be human. Marcus Blackwood had always been unstoppable. At 42, he had transformed a struggling tech startup into Horizon Innovations, a global empire valued at billions. His face graced the covers of business magazines, his name synonymous with visionary leadership and relentless drive. From the outside, Marcus embodied success in every possible way: the Manhattan penthouse, the vacation homes scattered across continents, the private jet waiting at his disposal. But for the past 3 years, an invisible enemy had been waging war inside his body. It started with fatigue, not the ordinary exhaustion that came with running a multinational corporation, but a bone-deep weariness that sleep couldn't touch. Then came the tremors in his hands, slight at first, then increasingly difficult to hide during board meetings. The migraines followed, blinding episodes that left him incapacitated for days. His skin developed a strange pallor, and unexplained bruises bloomed across his body like dark flowers. "We're looking at everything," Mr. Blackwood, Dr. Reeves, his primary physician, assured him during yet another inconclusive appointment. "Your symptoms are certainly concerning, but your blood work shows nothing definitive. Perhaps it's stress-related." Marcus had heard variations of this assessment 30 times before, from specialists across the country. Neurologists, hematologists, rheumatologists, endocrinologists, the parade of medical experts seemed endless, their diagnoses ranging from burnout to early-onset Parkinson's to rare autoimmune disorders. Each theory was tested, each treatment attempted, and each ultimately abandoned when his condition continued to deteriorate. "I don't accept that," Marcus said, his voice carrying the same authority that had built his business empire. "Something is wrong with me, and I need answers." But answers remained elusive, even as his symptoms worsened. The board of directors began whispering about succession planning. His executive team stepped carefully around him, their concern poorly masked behind professional smiles. Marcus felt his carefully constructed world beginning to crumble, and for the first time in his life, he couldn't solve the problem through sheer will or resources. Across town, in a modest apartment in Queens, Daniel Foster was facing challenges of an entirely different nature. "Ellie, you can't put peanut butter in your brother's hair, no matter how much he needs styling," Daniel sighed, attempting to clean the sticky mess from his son Ethan's curls while simultaneously preventing his daughter Emma from conducting what she called a very important science experiment with the contents of the refrigerator. At 36, Daniel hadn't planned on being a single father to triplets. But when his wife Lisa died from complications during childbirth 3 years ago, he'd had no choice but to adapt. He'd left his promising career as a research assistant at Columbia University Medical Center to take a more flexible position as a medical transcriptionist, working from home to care for his children. "Dad, can we watch the video about the man with the funny walking again?" asked Ethan, now partially de-peanut-buttered. Daniel smiled. His children had developed a fascination with medical mysteries after discovering him watching diagnostic case studies for his continuing education credits. Rather than shield them from the content, Daniel had turned it into a learning opportunity, simplifying complex medical concepts into terms they could understand. "After dinner," he promised. "And only if you 3 actually eat your vegetables tonight." The triplets groaned in unison but nodded their agreement. They were bright, curious children who absorbed information like sponges. Emma, with her analytical mind, often surprised Daniel with her logical deductions. Ellie, the most empathetic of the 3, noticed details about people that others missed. And Ethan, though quieter than his sisters, possessed an uncanny memory for facts and patterns. Daniel sometimes wondered if he was doing right by them. They lived modestly on his income, supplemented by Lisa's life insurance. The children shared a bedroom in their small apartment, and luxuries were few. But they had books, and curiosity, and each other. Daniel hoped that would be enough. The collapse happened on a Tuesday. Marcus was midway through his presentation at Horizon's annual stakeholder meeting when the room began to spin. He gripped the podium, trying to steady himself, but his legs gave way beneath him. The last thing he remembered was the horrified gasps of the audience as darkness claimed him. He awoke in a private room at New York Presbyterian Hospital, surrounded by concerned faces and beeping machines. "You experienced a significant cardiac event, Mr. Blackwood," explained Dr. Sharma, the cardiologist who had been called in. "Your heart rhythm became dangerously irregular. We've stabilized you, but I'm concerned about the underlying cause." "Join the club," Marcus muttered, his voice weak but edged with frustration. "That makes 31 specialists who are concerned but clueless." Dr. Sharma frowned. "Your case is certainly complex. With your permission, I'd like to consult with some colleagues. In the meantime, we need to keep you under observation." Marcus closed his eyes, too exhausted to argue. For 3 years, he had maintained control, keeping his illness private, managing his company through sheer determination. But now, with his collapse making headlines, the facade had crumbled. By morning, Horizon's stock would plummet, and the vultures would begin circling. In the days that followed, Marcus underwent another battery of tests. His assistant, Vanessa, managed the crisis at Horizon while fielding his calls from the hospital bed. His sister Catherine flew in from Seattle, her face tight with worry as she took up vigil beside him. "You need to rest, Marcus," she insisted, taking his tablet away. "The company will survive without you for a few days." "Will it?" he asked, staring out the window at the Manhattan skyline. "Everything I've built could disappear because some mystery illness decided to target me. 31 doctors, Cat. 31 of the best medical minds in the country, and not one of them can tell me what's happening to my body." Catherine squeezed his hand. "We'll find answers. We always do." But as the days passed, answers remained elusive. Dr. Sharma consulted with colleagues, reviewed Marcus's extensive medical history, and ultimately added his name to the growing list of baffled specialists. The connection between Marcus Blackwood and the Foster triplets came through an unlikely source, a hospital volunteer program called Healing Readers, where community members read to long-term patients. Daniel had enrolled the triplets in the program partly to expose them to community service and partly because all 3 children loved reading to others. Every Thursday afternoon, they visited the pediatric ward, but on this particular Thursday, the coordinator approached Daniel with an unusual request. "We have an adult patient who's been here for over a week," she explained. "He's quite isolated and refusing most visitors. His sister mentioned he used to read to underprivileged children before he became ill. I thought perhaps your little ones might brighten his day." Daniel hesitated. "I'm not sure about taking them to the adult ward." "It would be closely supervised," the coordinator assured him. "And honestly, this patient could use some human connection that isn't focused on his illness." After some consideration, Daniel agreed, and that afternoon, he found himself leading his curious triplets to a private room in the hospital's executive wing. "Remember," he reminded them as they approached the door, "this gentleman isn't feeling well, so we need to be extra considerate." The children nodded solemnly, clutching their favorite books. When they entered the room, Daniel immediately recognized the man in the bed, though his appearance was a shadow of the confident CEO often featured in the media. "Mr. Blackwood," Daniel said, surprised. "I'm Daniel Foster. These are my children, Emma, Ellie, and Ethan. We're with the Healing Readers program, but if this isn't a good time." Marcus Blackwood looked up from his tablet, irritation flashing across his pale features. "I didn't agree to this." "Cat signed you up," came a voice from the corner. A woman who resembled Marcus rose from an armchair. "I'm Catherine, Marcus's sister. Thank you for coming. My brother could use some company that doesn't have a medical degree or a corporate agenda." Marcus scowled but didn't object further as Catherine introduced herself to the children. Ellie, always the most socially perceptive, approached the bed first. "We brought books," she said, holding up her copy of Charlotte's Web. "Do you like stories about animals?" Something in Marcus's expression softened slightly. "I used to." For the next hour, the triplets took turns reading. To Daniel's surprise, Marcus gradually engaged with them, asking questions about the stories and listening with genuine interest to their animated responses. The children, for their part, seemed unfazed by his status or his initially gruff demeanor. As they prepared to leave, Emma, always observant, pointed to the collection of pill bottles on Marcus's bedside table. "That's a lot of medicine," she remarked. "Are you very sick?" "Emma," Daniel began, but Marcus waved him off. "It's all right," he said. "Yes, I am sick, but the doctors aren't sure exactly what's wrong with me." The triplets exchanged glances, a silent communication that Daniel had witnessed countless times before. "Can we ask questions?" Ethan asked quietly. "Dad lets us ask questions about his medical videos." Marcus raised an eyebrow at Daniel, who explained about his former research position and how he'd turned medical case studies into learning opportunities for his children. "They're surprisingly good at thinking outside the box," Daniel added, somewhat embarrassed. "But we don't need to bother you with that." "No," Marcus said, his interest piqued. "I've had 31 specialists fail to diagnose me. At this point, I'm willing to try anything. Ask your questions, kids." What followed was an unusual but thorough interview, as the 8-year-olds asked questions that ranged from predictable to surprisingly insightful. They wanted to know about his symptoms, when they started, what made them better or worse. They asked about his home, his work, his hobbies before he became ill. "Do you have pets?" Ellie asked. "No," Marcus replied. "I travel too much." "What about plants?" Emma chimed in. Marcus shook his head. "My assistant maintains some orchids in my office, but I don't have any at home." "Did you change anything before you got sick?" Ethan asked. "Like, did you move to a new house or get new furniture?" Marcus considered this. "I renovated my penthouse about 3.5 years ago. New everything, furniture, artwork, even had the floors redone." The triplets huddled together, whispering among themselves. Daniel watched them with a mixture of pride and amusement. They had developed this habit during their medical mystery sessions, conferring like miniature diagnosticians. Finally, they turned back to Marcus. "We have one more question," Emma announced, suddenly serious. "Do you have a really fancy bed?" The question seemed to catch Marcus off guard. "Yes, actually. I had it custom-made in Italy. Memory foam with a special imported mattress. Cost more than most cars." The triplets nodded in unison, as if this confirmed something important. "We think you might be allergic to your bed," Ellie declared. "Or something in it," Ethan added. "Like the man with the feather pillows in Dad's video," Emma explained. "He got sick too, but only when he was home." Daniel felt a jolt of recognition. The case study they were referencing involved a patient with mysterious symptoms caused by an allergic reaction to new feather bedding, symptoms that worsened over time as the patient's sensitivity increased. Marcus looked skeptical. "I've been tested for allergies. Nothing significant showed up." "Did they test you for specific materials in your bedding?" Daniel asked, his former research instincts awakening. Some high-end European mattresses contain natural materials that aren't commonly tested for: horsehair, certain types of down, specialized latex. Marcus and Catherine exchanged glances. "No," Marcus admitted. "They ran standard panels, but nothing that specific." "And your symptoms, are they worse in the morning or after you've been in bed?" Daniel pressed. A look of realization crossed Marcus's face. They're always worst in the morning. And when I travel, they improve after a few days. I always attributed that to being away from work stress. Catherine leaned forward. Marcus, remember last year when you stayed at my place for a week during your apartment's plumbing issues? You said it was the best you'd felt in months. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. A bed, Marcus finally said, disbelief coloring his voice. 3 years of suffering, millions in medical bills, my company in jeopardy, because of a bed? It's just a theory, Daniel cautioned. But it might be worth investigating. Marcus turned to the triplets, who were watching the adults with wide eyes. How did you think of this? We watch lots of mystery shows with Dad, Ethan explained. And in mysteries, it's always the thing nobody notices, added Emma. Like the invisible clue hiding in plain sight, Ellie finished. The theory proved correct. Specialized testing revealed that Marcus had developed a severe allergy to a rare type of natural latex used in his custom mattress, combined with a particular treatment chemical used in the manufacturing process. The combination had created a slow-building toxic reaction that manifested in his increasingly severe symptoms. The solution was remarkably simple: remove the allergen, treat the accumulated symptoms, and allow his body to heal. Within weeks, Marcus showed significant improvement. Within months, he was nearly back to his former self. True to his nature, Marcus didn't simply accept his recovery as good fortune. He launched a foundation dedicated to researching rare allergic reactions and environmental toxins, with a particular focus on home environments. He also established a program at New York Presbyterian to encourage innovative diagnostic approaches, including a fellowship named after the Foster triplets. For Daniel and his children, life changed in unexpected ways. Marcus offered Daniel a position heading the research division of his new foundation, a role that utilized his medical background while providing the flexibility he needed as a single parent. The triplets found themselves with a new mentor who valued their curiosity and encouraged their interest in medicine and science. You know, Marcus said to Daniel one evening, as they watched the children demonstrating a science project they'd created, I spent my entire career believing that solutions came from expertise, authority, credentials. I surrounded myself with the best minds money could buy. And instead, 3 8-year-olds solved the puzzle, Daniel finished with a smile. Marcus nodded. They asked the one question no one else thought to ask. They looked at my life, not just my symptoms. They saw me as a person, not a medical mystery. Children often do, Daniel replied. They haven't learned to overcomplicate things yet. As the triplets erupted in cheers over their successful experiment, Marcus reflected on how his definition of success had shifted. His company had recovered from the temporary setback, his health had returned, but more importantly, he had gained perspective. The man who once measured his worth in acquisitions and achievements now found greater value in connections and curiosity. The question that saved his life hadn't come from a prestigious medical journal or an expensive specialist. It had come from children who approached problems with open minds and hearts, who saw patterns adults had missed, who weren't afraid to ask simple questions. Sometimes, Marcus realized, the most profound wisdom comes from the most unexpected sources. And sometimes, the questions we need most are the ones we never thought to ask.